I do actually have a big announcement to make, so sorry that you might want to get your Twitters ready and everything, because this is kind of funny, but. I told you it would work. You have to blame Neville Smith for this, because this was his idea yesterday. This is actually a misprint. There he is. This is actually a misprint. I did the logo for the player jerseys, and CCP Puck was nice enough to offer to print me one with my name on the back. And the other day he told me that they'd come in and there was a misprint, so they printed mine with the CCP guys, so I thought that was kind of humorous. Oh, I did that already. We're not going to have any bullet points in my presentation because we're going to talk about art, so we're going to have a lot of arts. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of fun. So if you're here, I would encourage you to come upstairs at 1600 and join us for the round table. Andrew, who was just standing here, is a good friend of mine who's writing that awesome book. He and I have been working together a little bit on that. I did some maps and things for illustrations for his book. And CCC Spitfire is going to be joining us for a roundtable to talk about fan art as far as how CCP wants to work with us, the community, to generate more content for sale on the new store. So one of the first things that is sort of leading the way, as you know, is the posters that I did. But that is certainly not the end of the story, so they want to do a little bit more of that. So I thought today what I would do is tell you a little bit about how I see that process working and how to build a community of artists and writers and videographers and podcasters and all the people who do creative work for the Eve community, which is an amazingly awesome and creative community, and how we might build some of that together and help each other out. And then I've got this wire on my head, it's very weird, but and help each other out a little bit. So what the start of that is, who the hell am I? I just went through that a little bit, so I'll skip back a little bit. Out of game, I've been an artist for 30 years. I'll tell you a funny story. I was in 3rd grade, and my teacher, Mrs. Hatcher, sent me to the principal's office because I wasn't paying attention in math class because I was drawing spaceships in my notebook. So I went to the principal's office. This is an awesome story. And his name was Mr. Allen, and he was a huge NASA enthusiast. As a matter of fact, in his office, he had huge piles of magazines from NASA, and he got me to write them, and they used to send you free stuff in the mail when you were a long time ago. But so I went to his office, and he took a big sigh, like I just did there, and he said, "I'm very disappointed in you." And I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "Because you got caught." So I've been trying not to get caught drawing art for ever since. So that's who I am out of game. In game, I write a blog. You might have visited a few times. I'm the CEO of a pirate corporation called Stay Frosty, and I do hats, among other things. You probably all have an avatar with a hat of mine on it, hopefully. If not, let me know. Get you a hat. We still do hats, so it's kind of cool. But most importantly, what today I want to talk about is what we're trying to build on Slack. You guys are familiar, I hope, with Slack. It's a new social media tool. It's kind of like a instant text messaging kind of thing. And there's a tweet fleet Slack, and there's all kinds of channels for it. But the one I want to talk about today is for creatives, and my hopes and dreams for what that might be a springboard for down the road. So, as you all know, this community is just amazing, and I'm only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the creativity that we all show, that so many people have. And I know there's not a lot of us here today, but I hope you would pass that word along to your friends and people in the alliances, and we all know somebody. Because there are really great things being done, and I have two today that I would like to point out. My friend Tayamber is doing, you might know his Caldari Pony Club, he's doing a project called Project Jeremy, which is, sadly, this is like 2 weeks old and it's already way behind. He's working on it right now. He's an awesome guy, and he is quite literally the genesis of which sprang the art posters. Because without Jeremy, I told my wife this the other day, I said, without Jeremy, I have to log into Eve, get into a ship or find one, fit it, undock, go somewhere in space, take a screenshot, align it just the way I like it, take a screenshot, take that into Photoshop, outline the screenshot, and then do banners or whatever it is for whoever I want to use those images for. So with Project Jeremy, I can just log onto an internet anywhere and use it to do that. And he has it set up to take screenshots and images on white. And what it tells me, hopefully next week, we'll be able to export images directly out of Project Jeremy in any format we want, like PNGs with alpha channels. Yay. So, yay to Tiamber. That's a little bit of what Tiamber does with it. Unlike me, he doesn't believe in subtlety. So, I'm sure you've all seen his images of furry spaceships and pink, fuzz spaceships and furs, and they're awesome. But so that's his niche, and of course, the all-important Hello Kitty ships, which are awesome. So that's what Tiamber does. He's a great guy, and I wish him well. He's awesome. And without him, again, that's an example of how different disciplines can achieve goals. Because he's not trying to do what I'm trying to do, and I'm not trying to do what he's trying to do. But together, we can do something really great. And that's really what and of course, you might know Minxie. She's doing a new project now, which kind of got her started on a little bit, but she's doing really great with it. It's character avatar portraits. She's doing in oils and watercolors. They're awesome. That's my, I pushed that black button that I wasn't supposed to push this morning. Fanfest had us come in this morning and gave us the rules, and there's a black button right here I'm not supposed to press. That's what I did. Oh, there's some more. So that's Mark Sakaris and Cervantes, and I don't remember who that is, but they're really beautiful, aren't they? Yeah. Amazing. She does amazing work, and again, another example of how we've all seen, right? Yeah? A guy's doing a web comic on Eve on his own. This is Veskin Sentinel. His work, he does a lot of really awesome drawings based on Eve and the Eve lore. Some of these I wasn't able to identify, so I'm going to go through them real quick. And of course, my good friend Rock Weiler, who probably was the inspiration for a lot of what I do now because he's been doing it since day one. His blog and Crazy Canucks' blog, Dave Andrews' blog, really got me started in blogging 8 years ago. They were sort of the gold standards of blogging back in the day. And Rock's been kind of promoting his own persona since he started blogging. And that was, a little eye-opening to know that you can kind of do that. So he was the one that sort of inspired me to build a little bit of a kind of persona around Rixx, and not to that degree. Of course, I don't work out or lift or anything like that, but Rock's awesome. So I encourage everyone who hasn't joined Slack to do so, because I think right now we're at a pivotal moment with CCP. Helmer talked a little bit about that this morning, and how we're not looking forward to hype, and we're going to do things. And I know from Siegel and from Spitfire, which we'll hear a little bit more about today, that this is true, that we're at a moment where they want to integrate and work with the fan community even more to provide even more content for the community at large. So this is an important moment in time, I think. They're trying to step out and do a little bit more of that, and I think it's important for us to be ready. So this is my kind of goal. I don't know where it's going down the road. I mean, I have a vision for that, but we're not supposed to have those anymore, so we won't do that. But as an example, I want to talk a little bit about how the process came about for the posters and how that sort of happened, because I think that might be an interesting thing for everyone. So I started doing ship art 8 years ago. I've created literally hundreds of thousands of pieces. Alliance logos, corporation logos, banners for blogs, posters, you name it, I've probably done a little bit of it. The one thing I struggled with at the very beginning is the same thing we've probably all struggled with, because it was one of the questions that came up on the forums when I first learned that there were such things as forums. And the question was, how big is my ship? It's probably one of the first things a noob asks when they get into the game, because we have no avatars, so we have nothing to compare the size of a ship to. So this is the first thing I ever did 8 years ago, was try to figure that out and put them in some perspective. So sorry for the Europeans, but there's American football, which is kind of similar, but not the same, and the Empire State Building. But that was where it sort of, and now it's kind of evolving even more. But I brought this as an example because it's integration of Eve material into the real world, which has always fascinated me. And it's kind of the genesis of where the idea for the art print posters came from. And not really that they're about integrating Eve into real life, but it's these questions as an artist, as a creative person, that kind of drive you. You know, it's kind of a thought that won't leave your head. You know, you can't stop thinking about it no matter what happens. And that's kind of where, you know, some of these things came when I took these two real world gentlemen. There was a Learjet behind them, and I replaced it with the old Manicord model. I still have, I don't throw anything away, so I still have the layered file for that. So I have thought about putting the new Manicord in there, but that's a lot of work. So effort, right? I'm lazy, by the way, you wouldn't know it, but. And again, another example of that was a propaganda poster I did years and years ago for Provi Blog when I was with LFA down there with CVA, before they stabbed us in the back, and we lost Sovereignty. But yeah, I used to do a lot of, that's where I sort of cut my teeth on propaganda for the game. It was really interesting. You could create something and then post it on the forums, and then everybody would get excited about it. It kind of added a little something extra to the game, and it was a good lesson on sort of how to create an environment around art that would get people excited, which I continue to use today for Frigate Free-for-Alls and other events in game, which is kind of cool. That was another one. That one. And then I started working with Richie Shoemaker at Eon and doing Eon ads for Eon. So what would happen is that Richie would write up and go, I don't have a lot of staff, I don't have a lot of time. We need an ad for Eve Uni. So I'd be like, all right. So we do something like that. And I did probably 20 or 30 of those, which were awesome. And of course, I had mentioned earlier, but I do a lot of this stuff. So a lot of cool things that you see in Eve, I hope, or I hope you like it, I don't know. Nobody ever says they hate it, so I'm gonna keep doing it. So hopefully everybody enjoys it. But one side thing, and I'm sorry I'm fiddling with that, I'm gonna stop. One side benefit of doing it is that I haven't had a rat for 6 years. So, yeah, because like I said earlier, I started out in Providence when I was 2 weeks old, flew down the pipe. The CEO brought me down to Providence, and it's probably one of the scariest things I've ever done in Eve, still today. I was flying down there with my CEO scouting for me, and he kept saying, you know, well, there's some reds in the system. I don't know what those are. And there might be reds on the gate, and reds, you know, bad guys. And it was a slow realization that every one of those reds had people behind it. And that was really the thing that really sunk into me and got me really passionate about Eve, is that it's not your typical video game that I had played growing up. There were actual human beings behind the screen, like all of you guys. And you know, that was something important. Let's skip ahead. All right, well, I skipped. Actually, go back to the rock. So this is kind of where the ARF posters came from, because I was, again, this is integrating Eve into real life environments, created certain types of challenges that I wasn't able to overcome. And part of those were the actual source material. So as you know, it's very incredibly difficult to get into the code to pull 3D elements, and people do that, but I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to coding. So, because I'm an artist and a writer, and I don't do that. So this is another series that I did, and I'll skip ahead to this one. Because about a year ago, I started down a path to do these posters. And the reason why this came about was art limitations and problems with that. I wasn't able to get the kind of art out of Eve that I needed to create the pieces that I really wanted to do. And it was creating a boundary that I needed to find a solution to get past. And again, it's those things that, the problems that you have in whatever you're doing, and this is not just about creativity, this is about everything. The problems are when true inspiration comes, and when you break through to some solution that's better than what you had before. And these are perfect examples of that, because I wasn't able to get art out of the game that I really could use to do what I wanted to do. So lo and behold, the solution was to just create the goddamn art myself. So, and I don't know why I hadn't thought of this before, but again, it's just something that comes to you. And it's like, I can't get the spaceships to do what I want, so I'm just gonna have to draw the damn spaceships. And so that's where the art project came about. Instead of working in Photoshop, which is usually my fall to and what I'm best at, and I've been using it since it was in beta, instead of using Photoshop, I would use a tool that I'm not as comfortable with, but I've always used Illustrator because I can create vector art in Illustrator. And vector art, if you don't know, can be printed at any size. I could print it the size of Harpa, and it wouldn't lose any of the resolution, as long as I had a printer that was willing to do that. I could print the art and use the art any size I wanted, and it's completely resolution independent, and I could do anything I want with it, and suddenly that boundary went away. So I had source material that I created that I could do anything I wanted with. And that was really kind of revelatory and freeing. And I went through about a month where I wasn't even sure what to do with them. I had drawn, actually the Ferox was the first ship I did because I thought it would be really hard to do. And I thought about it, I was like, what ship is going to be the hardest to draw? And the Ferox, and nobody loves that ship. So I wanted it to be first because it's so pitiful and nobody flies them, and you know. I was born Caldari back in the days when that meant something, right? So I was stuck in these things for my first full year, you know, flying Drakes and Feroxes and Merlins, and everybody, ha ha, you're stuck in Caldari. You should have been born Mimitar. So that's where that came from. And suddenly it was, what do I do with these, and how do I make them work? And that's sort of where the inspiration for that came from. And what it became was very revelatory in that, you know, when it comes down to it, we don't have avatars, and we're probably never going to get them where we can walk around because of everything that we did to make them not want to do that. But we are the ships. And, you know, I don't know about you, but even this morning, if you were there for Valkyrie, when that ship got launched out into space and landed in the field of that fleet, tell me that you didn't feel something in your heart, you know? I mean, because that's us. That's the life we live in game are all about the ships that we fly. And, you know, the love and the beauty of that is really what inspires me to do these, is that, you know, they are representations of us. When I think of the Ferox, I could tell you stories about that. And when I think of the Armageddon or the Hawk, or I can tell you the first day that I learned how to fly a Hawk, and I was totally unskilled in it, but I bought one and undocked in it anyway, and it was horribly fit, and I warped out to a gate. This is still in Providence. It was in D-G. I can still remember this. This is almost 7 years ago. And flew to the gate and stood above the gate about 150 clicks off, you know, in a safe spot, and just wait out. Somebody, please come through so I can kill them with a Hawk. How cool would that be? And I know I would have died, but as I do all the time anyway. And you know, some are easy, some are hard. The Archon was incredibly hard. That was a good 20 hours probably. The Titans are insanely difficult. The Avatar, don't even get me started on that ship. But the cool part is I have resources now that all of these exist, and they can be used in multiple ways. And I have ideas that I'd like to talk to Spitfire about how further we could use them. But they're works of art, I think. I'm quite proud of them, and I want to tell you a little bit about how I do it. So that's a screenshot of me working on the Flycatcher, which again, another ship I love. Hardly anybody flies in the low-sec at least. I think it's awesome for low-sec, but nobody will fight me in it. I go into a system in a Flycatcher and everyone leaves. Except for some poor guy who's not paying any attention to his D-scan. There's always one guy in a system, and I know who he is because everyone else is gone, but he's still there. And I know he's not paying attention to his D-scanner or he's AFK, but that doesn't happen very often. But because no matter what ship he's in, I'll fly in on him and he'll be, oh my God, he suddenly wakes up. And you know when they wake up because nothing's happening for a second. You know, they don't have, no mods come on or anything, and then all of a sudden, they start shooting you and trying to run away. So it's pretty funny. But this is how it works. This is Illustrator, and people have asked me how do I do this. So I'll tell you a little bit about how the process works, if you're interested in it. Well, you probably are, because you wouldn't be here otherwise, because there are things. But what I do is I typically use Jeremy, but I also take assets out of game, because some ships just look better with starlight on them. And I like to see how the reflections work and things like that, so it depends. In this case, I took the screenshot out of Jeremy, worked out it as best I can. Sometimes ships require multiple screenshots because you can't see things and you can't quite tell what the details are. The art department here does an awesome job of building our ships, and some of them, especially with the PBT filters now, they just look amazing. So, and we won't talk about how that changed everything for me either. But so then it's just this process of using the Wacom tablet to build color on top of color. Essentially, no matter what you look at, your face, your clothes, this building, if you look at it with the right eyes, it's all just color layered on top of color. So that's really all the process is layering those colors over and over and over again. And sometimes on the really complicated ones, like the Avatar, I think I had 60 layers of color in Illustrator. And then it's only a matter of just combining those and layering them until they actually start to make a ship. When I first started, it's just blobs of color. Blob, 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 blob. This is kind of how it works. Blob, 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 red, gray, sort of gray, kind of gray, white, and then layer, 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 and it convert. So yeah, and it takes a little time, but when I really get into it, I can do it pretty quickly. And then sometimes the shadows aren't quite right, so you pull the shadow channel in Photoshop, bring it into Illustrator, and then kind of dick around with that a little bit. But so you can kind of see they're vectors. They're just all made of lines, which is kind of cool. It also helped me to learn how to use Illustrator better, because I use it for logo design and things like that. I've mostly been in advertising for the last 15 years. I'm trying to reinvent my own career, so it taught me a little bit of how to actually create art in Illustrator, so kind of nice. The reaction to the thing's been awesome so far. The last couple of months, people are printing them out. There's a guy here, I don't know if he's in the audience today. There he is, yeah, that's him over there. He took every poster. Right now there's 140 of them in my Flickr album. He took, and I do plan to finish. I'm going to do every ship model in the game, but he took the ones that he had and printed his books, which he brought here to Fanfest for me to sign for him. So that's awesome. I'll make sure that happens. Okay. Oh, you got him with you. Awesome. And there's a guy in Canada that's having his wife make a quilt of the ships. That's that down there. A quilt. And then as they Eve Down Under, and people are printing them out of Flickr and printing them and putting them onto walls and in their offices and places. It's just incredible. So the reaction's been really awesome. And a lot of that is what got CCP's attention right before the holidays, and we really started talking about how we can make this work and how it could happen. And it really wasn't actually a plan to have this happen for FanFest, but it sort of just all came together that way. We had originally talked about doing T-shirts instead of posters, and that idea, there's some challenges with actual material. And I know we're going to talk about that in the round. I don't want to take Spitfire's entire, how am I doing on time? Yeah. Okay. So there they are, the 4 that we picked. I had some questions about why Battlecruisers. That was my decision, by the way, because they Torfy and Spitfire asked, and I picked the middle 4. So they're bigger than frigates and assault frigates, and smaller than battleships. And there's the ships that, especially as a new player, that you kind of want to get into. You think you kind of made it when you can fly a Drake or a Harbinger or a Hurricane or a Myrmidon. They're, I think, the 4, besides the Rifter, obviously that's probably Eve's most iconic ship, but besides that, they are iconic Eve ships, and that's why they were chosen. Hopefully they sell well. It's kind of an experiment on both sides, and hopefully they sell well this week, and you guys are happy, and we can do more. So, any questions? All right, well, I hope you come to the roundtable. It's going to be a few minutes. Andrew and Spitfire and myself. There's Andrew, hi. And we'll talk a little bit more about the future of merchandise here with Eve. Thanks, guys.